Vision India Forum. Good morning, sir. Dr. T.V. Rao, Dr. Professor D.P. Agarwal ji.
Good morning.
The father of HRD, as we call him lovingly and out of respect, or with respect, I must say. He's been gracious enough to squeeze out time amidst all the excruciating schedule and his age, notwithstanding the kind of excitement, exuberance, and the passion he has for the field of HRD over the last 50 years. Dr. T.V. Rao today again is going to be speaking to us about something which has become very important: work-life balance, pressures of the work culture with the growing amount of competition, etc., etc. The way the things, the landscape, the corporate landscape has completely changed over the years. He's seen it all, and he's going to be taking us through the last 50 years, the transitions of the work cultures, and with him somebody very important, Professor D.P. Agarwal. He is a man who's seen policy level changes right from the beginning. He's somebody who has given policy makers to this nation. Former chairman of UPSC.
Yes.
What a pleasure. And the time today, we'll be speaking about work-life balance. It is very important for us to also rope in people who run this country. Because if their life is not balanced, obviously nothing is going to stay balanced. And lateral entry and hiring is something which is being spoken even in the parliament now. The parliament standing committee is going to be talking about, the chairman Brijlal is heading it, Rajya Sabha MP from Uttar Pradesh, former IPS officer 77 batch. They are talking about including candidates in UPSC or candidates in the government jobs, right from the joint secretary levels, up from the joint secretary levels. I mean, positions which were earmarked only for top performers in the UPSC exams. Now they can be recruited from the IIMs, IITs, and top institutes of the country. That is what the big people like Mr. Narayana Murthy have suggested very vociferously. So we'll start with work-life balance. The issue is around the kind of turmoil, imbroglio, which is surrounding the work-life culture in the country now. Pressures are mounting, suicides are happening, cases are being filed against companies. Ernst and Young, for example, was a case in Kerala wherein a girl from Kerala working in Pune committed suicide. Now, this has been one of the inflection points wherein this particular this discussion has really become very, it has become very significant, not only for the corporate world, but also for the society in general, for the policymakers in general. Over to you, Dr. T.V. Rao, because I can go on speaking. This is not a very good field for me to speak. So Dr. T.V. Rao, the father is here, father of HRD. Take us through your concept, your views for the last 50 years of transitions in the work culture of India. Where do we stand here and where do we go from here?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it's nice of you to say father of HRD, but I'm not a father of HRD. I keep saying none of my kids have the name HRD. I always say that everyone is his or her own father of HRD. You father and mother your own human resource development. Now, coming to the question that you raised, I must go back to 1974 when we conceptualized the first human resource development department. It's an outcome of a large number of interviews with L&T managers who said that in the morning when we take when employees take the L&T bus, that 1.5 hours they travel, or they stand in the queue to catch the bus, look at their faces. Sometimes they're very reluctant to go because, there are issues in the family and things of that kind. Same thing, you look at 5 o'clock when they are going home and go to the bus, I think they're very happy to go back. So can we reverse this? People are happy to come to the organization and are reluctant to go. I think that is what gave birth to the concept of human resource development. Can you make the workplace an enjoyable place? People, because a large part of our waking life goes for the organization. It's not only those 8 or 10 hours you work. When you are in the bus, you're thinking of the organization. Most of our conversations, you rarely talk about your family, but you talk of the boss, maybe the kind of things to do. When you leave, also what happened during the day. Either the boss is the point of conversation and so on. So if you look at 24 hours, and if you look at about 16 hours of waking life, about 10 to 12 hours, a large part of the waking life goes for the organization. So I think the whole thing came up. Can you create a culture where people enjoy whatever conversation they have? When you enjoy your work, there is no question of work-life balance, because life and work are two parts of the same kind of a coin. Now, I've seen this, I've observed this in IIM Ahmedabad, where I was a professor for so many years. We never bothered about, we stayed in the campus, either morning, evening, anytime we are available for students. You have discussions going on in the night, a student can knock at your home in the middle of the night. We thoroughly enjoyed. We didn't have working hours. When you have a class, you are preparing at home, you are in the library, you are everywhere there. So the whole question of anything like work-life balance never came into question, because you are enjoying whatever you do, whether you are doing research. In fact, I have seen this happen in many companies. Many companies, they say that if you enjoy your work, there is no question of, I think, you are balancing it out and things like that. I think the term work-life balance became more into focus post 90s, post liberalization. I think there was a pressure on people. There was, if you recollect, a large number of people. I think many companies downsized, right-sized. Pressure on contributions have gone up. As a result, I think tensions mounted up. KRAs, KPAs became important. So that is when employees also started questioning that, shouldn't I get enough time to look after my family? Are you are not looking after my, which was not the case if you go back to the traditional companies. Either you look at, I think, the Birla Group, the Tatas or Murugappa Group, because these companies took good care of the employee welfare in so many ways, organizing maybe townships, organizing facilities. So I think for them, the employees were the focus. The question of, therefore, work-life balance did not arise when you looked after the welfare of the people. It started arising with excessive target orientation, excessive pressures and things of that kind. Now, when Mr. Narayan Murthy says 70-hour work week, in fact, I think one of the questions I had was, why 70 hours? Why not 168 hours? You have in a week 168 hours. I mean, you are working all the time. This is my philosophy of work. When you sleep, why are you sleeping? You are sleeping so that you get up fresh in the morning and ready to contribute. Why are you eating? So that you have energies to contribute. So if you look at, most part of what we are doing is work. Most part, if you take that particular kind of a stance, then there is no question of work-life balance. Work itself is life. Life is work. I mean, the olden days, if we use it to say, work is worship. That is what we use it to say. So there is God in everything that you do. If you use the philosophy, then I think this differentiation doesn't come into picture. Number one. Number two, this differentiation comes when people do jobs they don't so much like. They do it as a target. They do it, they compartmentalize, and they say, I mean, there are some people by nature, and we must appreciate them. People who say work is work, life is life. Please don't disturb me after 5 o'clock. It's my time. It's my family time. So there's nothing wrong with it. Now, that is the way you are brought up. That is the way you have got educated. You want to compartmentalize life, treat work as different and life as different. I think we should respect those people, and we should therefore create conditions. But do that much before the individual joins. Say, look, we like to know your work preferences. Our company culture agrees or does not agree. If it agrees with it, okay, these are the conditions and so on. So I think recruitment time itself, you should build in this so-called work-life balance for those people who have compartmentalized life. But those people, even those people who have compartmentalized life, there are some companies who started saying 6 o'clock lights will be switched off. You can't work anymore. You better go home. Take off. There won't be any transport available after that. Even there, you had seen some individuals who bring their own personal lights and continue to work because they are so immersed in their work, they find it difficult to. Now, these are exceptions, of course. So I think this work-life balance today, post-COVID, we are in a world where people are people are able to and are need to and are more or less oriented to take care of their own needs. Gig work and temporary or multiple employments, all these kinds of things, flexibility at workplace have given rise to a lot more autonomous choices the individuals can make. So when you are making the choice of a job and the organization where you work, I think it is your responsibility to balance it out. So if you have joined a company, the company expects you X number of hours, I think that you are obliged to give. Companies eventually, I think, will move away from hours to other forms of visible results. Then I think the hours don't matter. As long as you give me this kind of output, that is what is going to be the outcome of skill-based employment and target-based employment and things like that. So in sum, I want to say work-life balance today, post-COVID context, is entirely the business of the individual. Organizations should make their policies clear, should also feel responsible in terms of creating an environment where people enjoy their work. That is by constantly explaining to them the purpose of work. I was doing some work for a company which manufactures vaccines. So if you're a manufacturing company of vaccines, and if you are recruiting about 200, 300 technicians a month, what have you done to explain to them this great vaccine they are manufacturing? How many millions of people are, deaths are being prevented by the vaccine? They don't. They simply pass on a target to this fellow and say, you have to make so much volume of vaccine by the end of the day. So the person feels that he or she is treated like a cog in the wheel. That's when the work-life balance comes. If organizations go an extra mile to help people to understand the significance of the work they are doing, I think the question becomes much less. Reduced tensions get reduced and work becomes enjoyable. I can go on and on. I think I have given my initial thoughts.
In the last,
in
the last 50 years that you have handled HRG, these kind of issues of suicides or employees being asked to leave abruptly, or they're having litigations with the company, these are not new things, no? I mean, these have happened over the last 50 years.
Much less. Yeah. I think today, I think they get highlighted a lot more. They have always been there, but may not be this many as it happens. They may not get as much highlighted. But I have rarely heard of, I've actually never heard of somebody dying out of work pressure. It may be because of a bad boss. It may be the way I think you have structured your work and you're being very insensitive. I'm not to say that you should not take care of, you shouldn't be sensitive to the needs of the youngsters. I think you should be. Why youngsters? Everyone you should be sensitive. Yesterday, I was listening to a very interesting panel discussion on employee rewards and recognition mechanisms. Now, companies are going to the extent of ensuring health for the not only the parents of the employee but also to their children and maybe one. So there are organizations who are going to that extent. But when you look at the employees don't have that kind of, quite unlike in the past, they don't have commitment for that kind of generation. The lifetime employment concept is gone, except in public sector. I think I must say, hats off to the public sector. Public sector has always been has been greatly considerate for employees. They took care of the education, they took care of the health, they created townships, not only the Tata Group. So I think there is a great life, and you realize what you miss in public sector only when you leave and sometimes join a company. That is where work-life balance comes. But in public sector, I rarely heard people talk about work-life balance. It was something like in the olden days, how good family-owned businesses have managed employees. I don't know if I answered that question.
Getting into the public sector used to be one of the certificates required for marriages in most parts of the country at one point in time. Today, a private sector emolument or the kind of perks that they get in the private sector is what probably, and then secondly, also the getting into the public sector, there are limited number of seats compared to the applicants. For example, if you go for a 5,000, seats, there could be around 15 lakh applications. Now I'll just go from there to Professor D.P. Agarwal. Sir, how do you compare the work culture between the public and the private sector?
Good morning to all. I think Professor Rao raised a very interesting question. And he said that the life balance is taken care in most of the government and the public sector. Uh, if you are in a government, for example, we recruit a lot of people every year for civil services, the IAS and the IPS. The work balance with them is also becoming critical now. For example, firstly, they are selected through a very difficult examination process. As you rightly said, about 200 IS, 6 lakh candidates is vying to get. But once you get your first placement, you start coming in terms of the kind of work challenge which you have, the variety of deliveries you have to meet on time, and it being so complex interaction between the public at large and the bureaucrats themselves, and also the top leadership, that the life is becoming more difficult for these young boys and girls. It has been now noticed that many of them do find opportunities to get out of this very complex mix of stakeholdership in government jobs, in government schemes, that the top bureaucrats are willing to leave early in their lives to join other pastures. So, as been said, life balance in a workplace arises out of three things. One can talk about system weaknesses. They will always be there. But please also understand, each person has his own ambitions. Him or her. There are lots of other stakeholders which impact you so much that they brings more pressure than the environment in actually you work. For example, if you are a collector, you work for your job, requirements are known, but the pressure which comes to you from your own needs that you want to become most popular, deliver all the time to the best, and things like that. Some people do have darbars, but then the pressure comes more from your relatives. They keep on asking you something or the other, and which by nature, once you are in a position, not. So when you look at the life balance, don't ever think that the life balance difficulty come because of the work environment in which the person actually working. In fact, in most of the cases, all young boys and girls choose their jobs. And one of the questions they choose their jobs is they also plan their own career. If you are too ambitious, which is not there in government job, like for example, you work at certain ages, 4 years in the collector and then get promotion, then a promotion, then a promotion. So you know where you are. But there are organizations where there's so much of cutthroat that you want to rise very quickly. So this ambition is one factor. Number two, as I said, the pressure from your other friends, your other stakeholders within, which makes you do that. So I still consider that it is not because of the organization itself, it's more because of my own ambitions, which may be beyond at times, which may be the family pressures. Days are gone when family won't put at all a pressure on the bread earner and let him work the way he wants to work. Today the expectations are so much. Children wants to go abroad every year. Wife wants to buy everything every day. Now you require all the time thinking of getting more money. For example, if you are in a government job, and this is one of the criticism, while I understand Professor Rao saying that work balance is not an issue, but still people doubt that the emoluments in government jobs and semi-government jobs are much lesser than some of the private jobs. But please also understand that the top leadership in private jobs are the only beneficiary of the great amount of salaries. But there are 70 or 80% people working in private sector, which works in the lower and the middle level. Salaries don't jump as high, but the targets are critical. So the choice of target is not with the person. In government also, this question was asked once. People come for promotion and we ask, before we look at his promotion, did you give him some work uh, that he must perform, he or she must perform? In many time in government and public sector, they say there's no very defined work. You are an employee for 24/7. You can't say no to any work, but there are no written rules and targets given to you. But it's also a fact that what happens in the society impacts you greatly. So, in my opinion, work balance is a complex mix of surrounding opportunities, your vision, and your step.
One word that I take away always in such discussions is the word called target. I think one of the major differences between the private and the public would be that particular thing called target, which drives, which is probably the root cause of all the issues, and then ambitions. So target and ambitions, if they are not aligned properly and you do not have a supporting kind of an ecosystem, especially with respect to your hierarchy, up and down both, I mean, it becomes very difficult for you to survive. But then Dr. Rao had put it very succinctly when he said companies need to lay down during the time of recruitment. Now, Narayana Murthy, now we'll take this to some other angle. What is this conundrum about the hours? I mean, somebody says 70, somebody says 60. In America, somebody suddenly becomes part of the US cabinet and he says 5 days a week. Somebody in India will come and say it has to be 6 days a week. I mean, who are these godmen, or who are these, people or philosophers who will decide, or the soothsayers who can decide on how many hours people have to work in a country, in a how can that be homogeneously described? I really don't understand. For example, in a city like Bangalore, it's not only the IT companies, right? There are other companies also which are there in Bangalore, for which you need to travel 2 hours every day to go to office and come back 3 hours. I mean, and then how do you work for 70 hours, 80 hours, 90 hours in a week if you have to commute in a city like Bangalore for 5 hours a day, or say go to Gurgaon and come back to Delhi and you spend 4 hours every day? How do you work for 100 hours a week?
Well, if you want me to respond it first, of course, it is what Professor Rao would do. But when you look at see these numbers of work in government and semi-government, there are no working hours. It's a flexibility, but it's a commitment to work to deliver at a larger frame. But please also understand there's no profit motive anywhere. A situation has arisen once in my life when I was to choose to join a big private group and to remain with the government. I was a director of an institution and I decided that I'll remain in government because whatever I do in government, and if I'm successfully doing it, making it deliver in time, it comes to my credit that this is Professor Agarwal who has done so well. And I become known by my own name of my work which I've done. So the recognition comes automatically. The recognition is not taken by anybody else. But when I work in a group where there are motives, there are target decided, many other private companies, then whatever good I do, it goes to the credit of the company's boss and the top leadership. They may respect you for it, they might retain you for it. Publicly, it is the company's name which is sold. Now, I find this is a great motivator when I work with the government, that there was no time schedule for me. Government of India has decided 5 days of working and 2 days of recharge. And these 2 days of recharge is also not free. You keep on thinking, you can keep on deciding, and there are certain work which you keep on coming at late in the night. So you enjoy it. So that freedom itself to enjoy, freedom to take a decision at a given point of time is one of the great driver to overcome any fatigue of time. Now, somebody can get fatigued if he works under pressure, even 30 hours. The point is, what is the capability, a human capability to work confidently without taking a recharge? I always believe a lot of ergonomic studies are available where there are time limits in which people can work. You cannot push them beyond a point. So that's all I want to say at this stage. Obviously, Professor Rao is an expert. He would be a
I
right
think
man to say.
actually this was addressed to Dr. Rao. Dr. Rao, I mean, how can somebody sitting in America, or somebody sitting in Bangalore decide for the entire city or for the entire country?
Well, I think number one, I think the first question you mentioned about these targets. I think all organizations are in the business of continuously improving, competing. So they are year on year, they keep on setting challenging targets, and that does put some strain on people. But it is not exactly the targets that strain you, it is the way you set them. When these are set by in a participative way with a lot of inputs from the people, and actually the doer, the performer should set the targets, not the supervisor. Supervisor can only give a framework. Then a lot of tension is likely to be reduced. Then number of things take care of. And not only that, you set targets, you create conditions for achieving the targets. I'm saying all this because we have reviewed our performance appraisal. I've been writing on performance management last 40 years, and my latest thesis is the performer should be the focus of appraisal. In fact, I'm recommending don't spend your time, waste your time on appraisals. Appraisals will always be subjective. Make work enjoyable. Spend your time on performing, not on appraising. And that's where Lord Krishna has so much to say. You can only own your effort, not the results. Results depend on so many other kind of factors and so on. Coming back to Mr. Murthy's, I strongly feel Mr. Narayan Murthy's 70 hours is grossly misunderstood. I think you should really read what he said and in the context in which he has said. He didn't mean 70-hour work week. He said in the current situation in which there is so much of talent, so many opportunities available, and the country is young, youngsters should be able to put a lot more effort than perhaps what they are putting. Now, that is probably questionable, and that is his expectation. So that you can build this country and achieve, I think, whatever our PM has been saying by 2047, so many things can be achieved. That is the context in which this 70 hours is taken out of proportion and boom. But now, suppose you have 10 days, 7 days a week. Every day you spend about 10 hours. It comes 70 hours. Now, what you call work, that is you define. I think even on a holiday, you may be doing a number of things which are related to work. If not, I mean, you work 14 hours a day. Well, how much does a Harvard student work? How much does an IIM student work? Those 1.5 years he is there in, let us say, in IIM. I think 14 hours of work is very not unusual, and it's not 5 days, it is 6 days. So, in a way, what Murthy was saying is put in hard work. It doesn't mean that tomorrow the companies should change their work week and make it 70. I think companies, whether we like it or not, will stick to their 40, 48-hour work week, and that has been standard for so many years. It started somewhere in early part of the 19th century. I think that is what, under so many of these conditions, that can take care of. So nobody, I think, will set norms either sitting in America or sitting in Bangalore. It is ultimately for the company to have it and make work meaningful, and for the individual. Today, if an individual does not like the work that he is doing, he has more options to say that, look, I only work part-time, or and nowadays companies are moving towards a project-based kind of working and so on. Choices have increased, options have increased. So if you choose to work only for X number of hours in company, you work for some more number of hours in another kind of a thing. All that facilities, it's a matter of time. It is eventually coming up. In 1978, I have seen in Egypt, when we went on a tour on a project of population and development, people doing 2 to 3 jobs. 1978, people doing multiple jobs. I mean, that is perfect in that culture. Those years, it was agreed. Somebody was teaching in a university and at the same time working in government. I think that's possible. If you have talent available, if there are needs, there can be best fit. Why not? So when you look at all the work that you are doing during a week, it might, why 70 hours? It might amount to a larger number. That is what was meant. I don't think he meant all corporations from tomorrow. Anyway, I am not his spokesman. I understood him that way. And for me, I think work and life are integrated. I enjoy every bit of anyone who enjoys his or her work. He may not be counting hours. Everything is centered around. I think that is the job of organizations.
I mean,
you will excuse me. I have to go for another meeting now.
Sir, 10 more. You'll have to be, because Dr. Professor Agarwal is also there. Just 10 more minutes, and then we'll close this today. Just a few more interjections. what about this work from home culture? There is this work from home culture, which has really, post Corona especially, become quite in vogue nowadays. So, Professor Agarwal, is this also there in the government sector? Because we don't hear about it so much so in the government, especially after Corona. Even in the Corona times, most of the people in the government sector had to go to office. Banks were working 5 days a week. So, I mean, what is this work from home culture that has been allowed by the private sector, Dr. Rao?
Rao respond.
Sorry, I missed your question because there are people waiting for me in other line and they have been asking me to join. So I'll quickly take a minute to answer. Can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, what about this work from home culture?
Yeah. Work from home. In fact, we have developed a tool to measure how to make work from home productive and enjoyable. There are 3-4 things that are involved in work from home, which has become a very interesting kind of a thing. And work from home does not suit every employee, every individual. To make work from home suitable, you'll have to understand the surroundings in which both the family and the community surroundings in which the person is working, and access to technology, access to facilities, and things like that. If you can't take care of those, you can't just simply say you work from home. Because in such cases, what happens is work from home becomes more torture with the organization not realizing, because there are demands by parents, parents in laws, children, and neighborhood. There are noises, there is no workspace, and things like that. So until you create such a kind of a culture, I think this work from home can't be automatically implemented. I think if the Indian corporations will come up with technologies. Work from home doesn't mean you will work exactly from your home. Will create other kind of workspaces and things like that. But having said that, I think it is also a great facility for those who have multiple responsibilities and who can take some time off and work from home. All that they need is a computer, and they have a room and they can sit, and then they can, particularly in those sectors like IT sector, in some of the sales sectors, it is a facility that organization is giving. Now you want to make it universal rule, etc. I think these are all. I don't think our country has matured to a level where you can make it universal. You can form policies. All that you can do is it can be a facilitation kind of a policy. But having said all this, let me also tell you, many people complain work from home has made work much more difficult and tension ridden. This is because I think they are working much longer hours than working in office. The time that you save, that 1.5 plus 1.5, 3 hours of travel, not only I think you're also working at home, but in addition, other kind of things are happening. Now, this needs to be examined. I think we have not done enough research. There is a lot of research that is needed. I would recommend any organization which is getting into this, first of all, I think you take care of individual factors, background factors, work needs, the technology, the structure. Only after doing enough of research, you can formulate. I mean, you can't formulate policy. You can't have one policy for all. You can only have a facilitating policy. Okay, I think work from home started as a convenience post COVID. Now it is becoming a right for those for whom it suits, but it can't be a right for those for whom it doesn't suit. That's where organizations have to be sensitive. You must excuse me.
Yeah,
I would have loved
yeah.
to
I can
be.
understand. I can understand, Dr. Rao. We will have a lot more discussions around these issues. I'll now request Dr. Professor D.P. Agarwal to take over the lateral hiring aspects, because this is
Okay.
a very important area which I wanted to talk to Professor D.P. Agarwal. Uh, Agarwal ji, this particular issue around lateral hiring. I mean, if we talk about all whatever we just now spoken about government, private, job culture differences, pressure differences, target orientations, etc. People in private sector work and think differently, and the public sector they work and think differently. And people who are coming out of these institutions, top institutions, who are being now recommended for for basically absorbing people for government jobs by the top industry rulers of this country. Are you in favor of this approach just because they may be more skilled, they may be bringing more latest technologies with them, they are more upskilled, or they have skills which can match the requirements of the day, and that could sometimes fill the vacuum in the public sector? Do you think that is the only reason why we need to, or probably we can upgrade the skilling of the government employees in such a way that we don't really need to mix this up and create a porridge out of this system which was established 75 years back?
This issue of lateral entry is actually not very new. In certain areas, government were taking through UPSC people as an advisory cadre to support certain areas. For example, in 1994, I went as an advisor education in Ministry of Human Resource Development from IIT. So there's always been certain needs in country as time passes that require specific skills which should be met and given to the government system so that the right policy can be taken. The discussion on this issue in Second Reform Commission is recorded. After a lot of deliberations, Second Reform Commission came to a conclusion that since recruitment to civil services to main government job done by UPSC in one style over a period of time, and they select people who are called generalists. There's always be a need, depending on the situation, wherever new technology emerge, new working culture emerge, new needs of the country emerge, that we would require certain people to come into the government for a certain period of time and enrich the working and go away. This has been a clear requirement, and Second Reform Commission asked the government that could you identify certain vacancies, certain areas in which you would require these people. So when I was chairman, we had what is called UPSC lecture, and the lecture would be delivered by one of a very eminent person. In one of the lectures as a chairman, I said, since over the period of time, a lot of changes occur in society, technology needs and wants. The way we do the governance would also continue to change. Now, once we understand this continual change of governance, there would be a requirement of people who come from a different mindset, different skill sets for a certain period of time and support the permanent bureaucracy of the government. Now, till this exists, I think it is a need of. I would support wholeheartedly a scheme of lateral entry, which has been there in vogue for a long time. Eminent person like Manmohan Singh ji, the former Prime Minister, had come to the government as an advisor in finance. I had gone myself as an advisor, education, looking after technical education. There have been people in medical sciences, but please understand where these people are required at a place where policies are made. Now, the scope for these specific people is there already. Like, for example, you could be a good doctor, you could be head of AIMS. You could be a good professor, you could be head of IIT. You could do a lot of research in research laboratories. But when it comes to the government, whose role is to make a policy and deliver this policy to a large number of people, you require these inputs of technology and look at those nuances and be hand in gloves with the existing leadership. So I always support this scheme. Difficulties may be there in implementation of this scheme. To clear that as and when you require people, as the requirement of the country in policy making, you should get people from the best of the places, including industry, including education institutions. And the two examples I gave was Manmohan Singh ji and myself.
I mean, a joint secretary level direct entry, do you recommend that?
I'd gone there.
Please come again, sir.
I joined as joint education advisor, which was JS position in Ministry HRD in 94-98.
That was the rank. Okay, at a rank of joint secretary. Now, my question is, to become a joint secretary right from a UPSC stage, I know even people from IIT IIMs prepare, they have work experience also a lot of times. Then they prepare for UPSC, then they get through IAS, or IPS or IRS. So they are already coming with the same kind of technical qualification. Most of these guys who come into UPSC or through UPSC, they're anyways very strong technically in their field. Most of them, as far as my knowledge goes, you are the best person to tell us the breakup of the candidates who get into these elite services. They are highly qualified even before they have cracked the UPSC. It is not that somebody just walked in from class 12, gave a CAT examination after graduation, and then just entered IIMs. It is not something like that.
Yeah,
Now,
please understand.
hmm,
I know what you're saying. Civil service examination is fairly complex, fairly elaborated, and people with a lot of qualifications come. Now, current trend is that a lot of people who are professionally trained, such as engineers, doctors, are coming into the IS and IPS. There's been a lot of discussion on these issues, and people still believe that to be the top person in his own area cannot impact very large number of people. You can impact when you come in the government is the policy making. So this input from professional programs into civil service is there. There's no doubt. But please also understand, if I join today, my qualification is BTech or MBBS. But when I'm looking at JS, I'm looking a person with 20 minimum 20 years of experience. And by the time you make a big name through either research or by your interaction with society at a large, you are much better in technology areas. You are much better in the needs of industry and commerce and the economic planning than a normal bureaucrat who only remain quite deep into delivering day-to-day work. For example, first 7, 8 years, you are at the district level and looking at district problems, which is almost day to day. So you don't enrich yourself. What are the new approaches of planning, new approaches of getting economy, finance, education right? And there are lots of global world which is doing this. Though we send our bureaucrats on a periodic training and get an MBA from best of the schools. But please understand those who like Professor Rao, who worked on HR so deeply, there would be nobody in the government working so much, even the HRD secretary. So there are values with people who spend their lives in planning. Now, it, a person who comes at the JS level in government will at least be nothing less than 20 years of professor service in a given institution. And by the time you would have come dean, you would have been dean planning, you had done R&D, there's an industry connect. So it is one person which is an all-round personality with an exception. So
my
the problem
understanding.
has come. Let me
I
know
mean,
why this problem has come. The
suppose
problem has
somebody.
come till now. These people were coming as an advisory cadre. Like, for example, I was joint education advisor. The new scheme thought of giving them the same designation as they come from civil service, joint secretary. Now, as a joint education advisor, I did not feel any requirement that my designation to JS. Unfortunately, in the public at large, it is some common designation which are important and attract respect. I think this is one only concern which is coming in big. If they were still educational advisors with powers of JS, nobody minds. The problem has come because when you come into civil service, you come through a grueling exam. When you take people outside not meeting the requirement, therefore there is a question. Otherwise, there's nobody against utilizing the talent, and there's always a requirement in the government using the talent. You remember even in embassies, there would be a scientific advisor, there would be defense advisor. So these people are always there. Question is the designation, and people take en masse, and people believe that those who come through a very difficult exam and spend 20 years of public life, these people may not have. My submission would be if they are only called as an advisory cadre and taken from outside, there will be no problem.
That is a good suggestion because this secretary ranking and so many things. I mean, as an advisory or contractual position, it is always. But then in that case, uh, Do you think the right talent can be attracted by the government? Because these guys who get into these top institutions and they do not wish to opt for UPSC, would rather come through direct recruitment. I mean, you see, half of their batchmates would be going for UPSC. Now, the half who are not going, you're trying to attract talent from there. So now, if you, that is
Please
what,
understand this
why would
talent.
people want to join there?
No, please understand. This talent which we are now taking at a lateral entry have gone to the best of the institution. For example, if you want to go to IIT as a faculty, you have to have a very special talent. A general person doesn't come. Please also understand that if a parents can get the boy 10 plus 2 pass into IIT, he'll be the first person. But getting to IIT G is not easy. So getting faculty positions in the IIT, the ISC, and the IM is as difficult or as simple as being selected in the IS. So please don't understand. And I get that respect when I joined. People recognize that I have that special respect because I came from IIT. If you tend to select people from the best of the institution, which in this country has already made a name and people want to be there, then there will be no question. Difficulty only comes when some people come from organizations who are not known in public image as much as one who qualifies civil services.
Sir, my question was, you would like to go and recruit people from IITs and IIMs directly, but would you get candidates who are willing to join directly like that?
Some people do come. Administration is not very easy. I can tell you, many scientists can't administer. And I've seen, I had a professor with me in IIIT Gwalior. He said, sir, no administration, I'll do only academics. So talent pool is limited. I want a talent pool not only of technologists, but a technologist who can do a policy planning and also provide a good roadmap for implementing and mid-course correction. So it's not easy. I agree with you. Talent is rare. And to get this talent, you have to go a long mile. And people do want to come to serve country.
Second thing is, if you know somebody is in the IITs, he knows probably I will have to prepare for another 2 years and then I'll get into the IAS or UPSC, whatever. Now, that is the general process. Now, if he gets through, he stands, he starts with a collector's role or SDM's role, whatever role he gets to start the career, he or she. At the same time, his own batchmate, with probably 7 years experience before joining IIT, or probably, whatever, I mean, that particular candidate can directly get into a advisory role, which is at the same rank as a JS, which he will reach after 20 years. How does the government settle
No,
this?
no, it doesn't get after 7 years. Please don't say this. I was a professor for many years. I served 20 years, which is when you advertise these posts, qualifications written are very carefully. You must have spent at least 20 years to come at a JS level position in the through advisory cadre or any other. It is not that a 7 year person can come. I think this is something wrong. It's wrong in people's mind. People come at an equivalent level with similar seniority and top class achievement. So
Second,
please never carry impression that somebody with 7 experience, how talented you are, you will be taken a
I've
GS.
understood. We've understood. Basically, you're saying that the eligibility criteria, that is very obvious. Actually, my question probably was not very relevant. I accept my mistake. Probably the eligibility criteria itself will take into consideration the equivalence of both the people, when they're recruiting those people. Understood. Now, the next thing is, if this is the situation, why do we still have people from the services even donning the caps of CMDs in top corporations? When people with 30 years experience technically and educationally in that particular corporation, like a Coal India, half the time the CMDs are from IS. Most of these public sector
But
companies,
this
they
has
try to
been
have IS as their CMDs. It's
this
not
has
not talking about additional charge, full-time charge for 5 years, 3 years. Now, if that is the situation, at one point you're talking about getting the technically right people. At the second time, and on the other hand, what we are seeing is top companies, top public sector companies appointing IS officers with only administrative experiences, handling districts and all those. Now suddenly coming for 1 year into suddenly coming into a company which probably they were principal secretary at the state level, and they are joining as the chairman of a central public sector company. How do you think that really, it adds up logically?
I think this has been a very challenging question. I remember when as a young student, we'll ask this question why CMD of NTPC can be a bureaucrat, not the professional. Now, this dichotomic situation exists.
Can be
Nobody
a
could even,
NTPC, same type NTPC can be a.
I mean, there have been bureaucrats. Indian Airlines CMD was a defense person in IS. This has been a question, and that has allowed lots of people from technical background to enter into IS. Before these technical people wouldn't come, they will probably were top of their own areas in which they are. I agree with you, it's a very dichotomic situation. But I always believe if you select these positions transparently, they must be available to everyone. But I have no ready-made answer, and I've also not thought too much about it, that why should it is only one-way traffic? If the second-way traffic is now opened, why these people are cribbing? That's a question. The second traffic is open now. If you are good at NTPC, you can come to the government in power ministry and manage the power ministry. It should occur. So, in fact, it is both way right. If the Brijlal committee try to look at that issue and are willing to talk to them, is that if a bureaucrat was found to be useful as a chief of, say, aluminum company, why not aluminum company was found to be useful in the Ministry of Mineral? Now, this equivalences the workload or capabilities. The advantage with probably IS is that he has experience of, till he becomes CMD, experience of at least 6, 7, 8 departments in which he has handled HR, he has handled finance, and he has handled the public relations. He may not be the top person in that area, but it is believed today that administration only needs understanding of finance, HR, and public relations. And they believe, because they are trained as journalists, that whenever they want the quality input in subject area, they can always hire people. Now, this alone has made them so somebody who has nothing to do with solar energy, is secretary solar energy, and he writes books on solar energy as compared to the books of the other, because the material was available from elsewhere.
Sir,
Now,
you
this
see,
question Bijlal committee has to
same
do.
dichotomy, the same dichotomy becomes so much so exposed in the case of critical departments like earth sciences, science and technology,
Of course.
biotechnology. You see,
Yeah.
there we never have IAS officers. Generally, we don't have IAS officers. But we have scientists who come and sit at secretary level.
Correct, correct.
So
I
going
think
by that,
four important departments which PM directly handles, in which the nuclear energy come, space come, they're all scientists. Luckily, they could survive. But if you look at other public sector companies, they became almost transferring position for bureaucrat into go SCMD or some other places. Air India, for example, many years has CMD coming from elsewhere.
so why can't we have a system like we have in the IPS? You recruit so many IPS. One of your so celebrated IPS officers, the movie was also made recently.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, in IPS, when somebody rises to the DGP of a state rank, there are DGPs who are handling different departments which are specific to them, administration, training, cyber wing, whatever it is, or and then ADG is also. Similarly, in the case of such recruitments, suppose somebody is a secretary and he's a scientist who has been made the secretary. Why not have people who are also handling, who come from the administrative wing and who take care of all the various aspects of the science and technology department overall in the country, instead of the scientist who suddenly comes from a Baba Atomic Center and is made the secretary of a ministry. He has neither got the experience of handling ministers nor the experience of handling the public. I mean, how do you think he's going to be taken care of as a secretary at that level?
As I already said, it should be okay. I'm for movement from both sides. Take the best person. I've shown it myself. Manmohan Singh ji has done a wonderful job, as we all know. I mean, look at even my case. I went as joint education advisor, and by all account, I did all wonderful jobs. Now, the problem lies that in bureaucracy, there's a method that somebody from bottom would write in notes. People who come from a professional life understand those issues themselves and want to own those responsibilities. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm always for all kinds of things where the best people can be taken. It's only a lucky position that 200 vacancies, top positions are given to bureaucracy itself. For example, take UK. UK does not have this IAS government all going to the top. They take first 10 years, the bureaucrats, through a common test, like we do IAS. And after 10 years, they start recruiting people for senior positions. And at that time, all positions are open to everybody in public, including them. So some of them will move up, some of them will not move up. हमारे यहाँ क्या हो रहा है that anybody who enters once through one examination would reach the top. There's not a single equivalent to secretary, which is not open to other departments.
So how do you match the expectations in the two kind of segments of people or employees? Somebody coming into the public sector obviously will not be getting the salaries out of an IIM, the same as the salary that would be given in a corporate, somebody passing out from an ISB, same qualifications, same background, salaries would be 1/10. What do you do?
People do come for their satisfaction. If you ask one of the reasons why people come to IS, they come for a satisfaction of doing something which may impact people. So this is a big satisfaction. Of course, you made another issue that many people who come from, say, BRC coming to secretary science technology, their experience of handling politicians may not be there. But should it become so difficult that their clear knowledge of technology development, which is the role of Ministry of Technology, to encourage technology development in country, to bring a technological temper, they are the right people in the position. Science Technology Ministry always had so far, the Secretaries in Science, SNT has done very well. BRC, for example, we could develop science technology, and the question then start coming in, why in Air India did not grow when there were bureaucrats. Continuous 3 bureaucrats were chairman. Now, none of the airlines take a non-professional as CMD. The new Air India, which is a mix of Air India plus this, there's somebody who's a professional. So there are roles of professionals. When you choose professional, you can accordingly choose. I'm not saying don't choose the right person. The difficulty only comes when you try to choose a person not up to the standard.
So in a government environment, can professionals really thrive at that level?
They can. No problem. But they must be told you are here for 3 years, go.
And when you talk about, after the government stint as a contractor or as an advisor, when they have to they wish to go back to the private sector, obviously, they have a huge opportunity. What plans does the government have? So like in the case of bureaucrats, they are posted in World Bank, they are given plum posts in different, multilateral agencies and so on and so forth. What plans does the government have to allure such new talent, raw talent, into the lateral handing so that the candidate who comes, he knows that for me it is like 3 years of policy kind of an experience, and then I will be getting a straight entry again back to the corporate world where I can get the dollars which I was, desirous of.
I think you made one of the fantastic suggestions. If government, wherever they send people, because of them, they must choose the best person for them. It's a great suggestion you made. Nobody has made yet this suggestion that if there are vacancies in the World Bank, government should ask applications and let them choose the best. If government want to send somebody into Asian development, what is an IS? Choose the best and send. It's a country person going there. For example, people go to Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. They go through Ministry of Education. They invite application from all kind of educationists. And because these are positions of professor and associate. So people are taken and sent. So why not do it for that position? If they were doing them there also, the confusion which has arisen now will not happen. It's a great suggestion made. Please
Actually,
pursue that suggestion.
I've seen youngsters who are coming out top qualifications, top institutions, working in, for example, in NSDC, such corporations. They work for 3, 4, 5 years, carrying files in the lifts up and down, carrying the minutes, doing so much and so forth. And finally, they keep striving, to get into the United Nations,
You're
ADB,
right.
World
I think
Bank.
you made one of the good suggestions. Let's pursue this suggestion further. It's a good suggestion that young bright people in the corporate world as well as the government public sectors, they should be encouraged to be allowed to go into the multinational bodies where India can make a bigger impact.
So
After
I
all,
think,
after you recall our own person who was a professor, Rajat Gupta, sorry, the Reserve Bank governor who was recently was there, gone back to University of Chicago. What is his name? Who was the Reserve Bank governor and
Raghuram
came as
Rajan, Raghuram
Raghuram
Rajan.
Rajan. Raghuram Rajan came as an advisor under lateral entry. So in the whole planning commission, 5 people are sitting there. Pankadia came to Prime Minister advisor. They are not secretaries. They're equivalent secretaries. But they came as advisor. So in such big position, to bring top people as advisor to the government and let them go after a certain period of time. After UADI was done, the Infosys gentleman.
Yes, because you see, if somebody moves from the government sector to those World Banks and agencies, there is an issue of cooling off kind of thing, which is very important because suppose I've had experience in the Ministry of Aviation for 3 years. I've worked with the minister as minister's office or whatever, and then I am recruited after 3 years. My contract is over, and then I straight away go to Air India, the Tatas, or I go to SpiceJet. Will the government allow me? If it allows, it should not, because then there is so much of cooling off, thing which is being bypassed. So better is, why do not have opportunities for such talent to be absorbed as government representatives or professional associates in these organizations across the world, where the candidates can be directly placed by the government, and they become the mouthpiece of the government technically, as well as the talent which is being harbored, nurtured for a few more years, and that can really add value to the country in the years to come.
This is a
Sir,
very good suggestion. Let's pursue this. I can also tell you that recognizing that people who appear in civil rejection ratio is 1:2 roughly. I recommended to the government that these people who are not able to make, they are equally good as those who have made. For all other selections, they can be directly interviewed and taken. This proposal lying with the government. So there is nothing to reinvent wheel. Why? Use the talent pool, utilize to the maximum.
finally, sir, before we close the show, there was this issue of reservations in the lateral hiring. What is your view on that?
No, this happened because the designations were given, which are given through people who come from civil service. Civil service have directors, joint secretaries, additional secretaries, and there are reservations which are given as per the constitution. Now, when you recruit people on the similar designation, I thought reservation would apply. If it is an isolated post, only then the reservation will not. Please understand, Government of India now want reservation in academic institution. There also roster is made. Now, how can then government in their own department will not do this? If you take advisor only for 3 years, this issue will not come.
Oh, that means you are suggesting, if I have understood it clearly, the reservation rule should apply, verbatim to the positions that it currently applies for such
Obviously,
application. Yeah.
because these are government positions, same designation, and government is propagating reservation in all positions where either the government is funding or government directly. So there is an issue. But if it was in people to be brought clearly, it's a 3 year vacancy, it's an advisory vacancy, he'll not be called joint secretary. He might have powers of joint secretary. Yes, invite the talent. After all, we are inviting talent to deliver to the government. can only you deliver in
So it is a matter
GPSC.
of, it's a matter of the the title, the rank, which is
Correct. Correct.
okay. Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful interaction with you.
Thank you.
I think in a short span of time, whatever can be extracted out of people like you with your time and age is something which is going to help the nation going forward, because you've handled these things from the closest quarters. And we've been lucky to meet you so many times and look forward to having more interactions with you. Thank you and good health, sir. Thank you.